Hi book lovers! Today I'm going to discuss a book that I read over the week. The book is called Blindspots. It covers all of the mind bugs that we have in our head that is constantly fooling us throughout the day. I thought it was very interesting, but I couldn't understand like almost half of the book because it's pretty scientific. But I gave it a shot anyway and I learned quite a lot. No offense to the writers. So these are my 3 takeaways from the book. I hope you enjoyed it. Right, the first takeaway. The book started out with an image of 2 tables with 2 different tabletops from the first sight of it. I had a quick glance on it. The question underneath it says, are the tabletops the same? I looked at it over and over again and it was clearly not the same. So the next statement after that is that it's not the same, try measuring it for yourself. So I kind of like traced the tabletop and matched one table to the other and it's exactly the same. It's just strange for me to see 2 tabletops looking very different, but when you measure it, it's exactly the same. And there's a reason for it. It's part of evolution, and the book actually explains that it's because our minds see things as 2D. Because if you look at our eyes and what it's seeing, we're actually seeing things in 2D. But the mind had to correct the visual image to make it 3D, like how it is in the 3D world. So there's this conversion that happens between the eye and what happens in the brain that you can actually trick it. So that's a visual mind bug. The second takeaway is another mind bug that I will always take note of. It's called anchoring. Our mind does a pretty good job of it, trying to make sense of our environment by anchoring our ideas and beliefs and perception on something we already know. When we are faced with a situation, our mind kind of like gathers whatever information or bits of information that we have at our disposal and tries to make sense of it, and sometimes even correlate some of this information to produce a pattern, a predictable result. So the folks at MIT did this test. They brought in a couple of students to write down their social security number. Then later the professor brought in a keyboard and a trackpad and tries and asks the students to give a price of how much they will pay for those items. Those for whom the last 2 digits of their security number happens to be the lowest, they will be willing to pay less for the 2 items that the professor brought in. For those with the social security number last 2 digits that are higher, they would pay more for it. So there's some form of correlation to it, and the reason behind this is because of anchoring. The mind was anchoring on what they wrote beforehand, their social security number, and somehow the numbers over there correlates to their decision as to how much they're willing to pay for those items. The third takeaway is about our minds working in 2 parts. One is the reflective thinking and the other one is the automated thinking. So for the reflective thinking, that's really much our logic thinking. We kind of process the information and we try and make sense of it and come up with a rational thought to decide on the best outcome, right? So that's really reflective thinking, rational thinking. It's something we do quite well in our jobs and in our everyday life trying to solve problems, right? But there is this automated thinking which we don't really have much control of, because automated thinking is stemmed on past experiences and influences that we have in the past. It's something that comes true, but it's very subtle and it actually affects your actions along the way. So let me give you an example of how this reflective thinking and automated thinking works. So let me give you an example. Let's just say this person A. He's this person who fights for women's rights. He's a big supporter of the gay movement. He's noble. He believes in equality and so forth. That's reflective thinking, having an idea of that person. His reflective thinking, having an idea of himself. Now, for automated thinking, it's a little bit different. Automated thinking, it could be based off his experiences in the past. Maybe he had a bad experience with his gay friend. And Harvard has this test called the implicit association test. If this person were to take this test, he or she would start to realize what his automated thinking would say. The automated thinking may just say that he's against gay people or he's against women's rights, just for example. It's just because we have two parts to the mind. One is the reflective thinking and one is the automated thinking, and they don't necessarily align themselves together. One is influence from the outside, the other one is influence from the inside and past experiences. So take note of these two things. We sometimes may fool ourselves. Our reflective mind may have a clear idea of who we are and what we want to believe, but our internal automated thinking says otherwise. Alright, so what do I think of the book? It's not an easy read. It's pretty scientific. I enjoyed most parts of it, but some of it I just skimmed through. I think I probably need a second read. So for those who are interested in how the brain works, your blind spot, your mind bugs, I think this is a great book to read if you have the time. I try to read a book a week, and there are 7 or 8 chapters. I kind of skimmed through most of the chapters and took my time in those that made sense to me. My keeper rating for this book is roughly around 3. I would definitely pass it on to someone to read. I've got some takeaways from it, which I've already shared with you. It's quite a good book. The writer is actually from Harvard, so they know their stuff, and this is one book that I will constantly go back to if I need to know what are my blind spots in life. Because in professional life, we all have blind spots, and we do rely on our team members to tell us the truth. This book addresses some of the crazy blind spots that I didn't realize my mind is doing. So I hope you enjoyed this sharing session. If you like it, click like below and do subscribe for future videos.